for every 10 that you got, that you wrote, you have a history of getting 8 or 9 accepted. Now it's like 2. So we're spending so much time writing and rewriting and then writing again offers for the same clients that we could be doing so much more with our time if we could figure out how to win those multiple offers. Now I'm going to put a couple of you on the spot, especially Melissa, because her eyes got really big. I have talked to you several times since you sat in our last multiple offer class, and I wanted to hear from you if you have used any of these strategies, how they were received when you wrote them, because this is a lot of stuff that you don't see in our area. And I wonder if it's going to take a minute. Hi, Logan Cheek. I'm Christy. If it's going to take a minute to get people to wrap their brains around it. So give me a little bit of feedback.
Well, since the last time, we have done, me and my buyer, on one offer, we wrote out a $5,000 earnest check straight to the seller. On that deal, I think we were about $10,000 over list price with the $5,000, and that was not accepted. And then we wrote another offer for $20,000 over asking with a $10,000 earnest check straight out to the seller, and with the $7,000 in seller closing cost offered, and it still was not accepted. But it's pretty discouraging. My buyer's about to back out now. She's about, if something doesn't happen on the spring, she's so discouraged at this point. I don't blame her. She's
What
about
price
to just
point?
back out.
What price point is she in?
She's right at 200 to 210.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm trying to interest her in Georgetown new construction. We'll see. I don't know.
yeah, it's tough, and I won't lie. That $200,000 price range is like playing Russian roulette. Like, I feel so sorry. And I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not going down this road. However, I feel sorry for a lot of the buyers that are in that price range, under 300, because we're starting to see 25, 35, 40 offers per listing that's coming on, and only one person can buy that house. So there's 35 people or 40 people that are discouraged. And how does that translate into our market 6 months from now? Are those people going to pull back like they did 6 or 7 years ago, and then it shifts from a seller's market to a buyer's market? I wouldn't be sad to see a buyer's market for a couple of years. I mean, we could flush out all these people that want to buy houses and, actually sell them something instead of just writing offers. But what are scenarios that we're going to go over today are more or less things where I have talked to other brokers in other parts of the country, and these are things that they are seeing working. Now, the difference between our market and the market that I pulled these multiple offer scenarios from is we're starting just now to see the high teens and the 20s and the 30 offers per listing. They have seen it for 12 months. They've seen it for 18 months. Chicago's seen it for 5 years. So this is something they've been dealing with for a really long time. Kentucky tends to be, like me in my fashion, I'm about 10 years behind. So if it's really cool today, I'll catch up to it 10 years from now. But, so Kentucky tends to be behind in that way. And that's not a bad thing, because then we can learn from them. And it's not as tragic on us. So Paul, did you give me screen sharing permissions? Okay. When I start sharing my screen, I can only see one of you. So if you have a question, don't feel bad for interrupting. Just go, hey, Christy, wait, because I can't see your face. I can't see your hands if you wave. Hold on just 1 second.
And Christy, you mess with my Remax Elite Realty Expert Series. Every single one, I get to talk about the person, introduce them, talk about what we're going to talk about.
Nobody wants to hear about me.
That's how they record and like, all right, we're live, people.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear about me. They hear way too much about me anyway, so nobody wants to hear. But thank you, Paul, for making me at least feel special a little bit. Here is the battle of the multiple offer scenario. Sorry about this. I don't know why I didn't get that little guy off there. But so what we're going to talk about a little bit today is just differences that you can do in order to make your offer stand out. Again, if you have questions, just yell out because I can't see all of you. One, sit down and analyze with your buyer their financial circumstances. It is not our responsibility to tell our buyers if they can or cannot afford a house. That's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to make sure that they understand what they're getting into, meaning mortgage payment, what it looks like to write the contract, what they have to have out of their pocket, any financial responsibility that they have going into the contract. We need to make sure that they are fully prepared, because there's a lot of people. Well, when I first got into real estate, there was a lot of people that were like, oh, wait, how much is the home inspection? Oh, wait, well, what is this? Because I didn't fully explain it. And I think you eliminate a lot of problems in the beginning if you do fully explain it. Find out if your buyer has access to additional funds for increased down payment in the event of a low appraisal. So if you're going to do what they call an appraisal, I think Leanne Parks is on here somewhere, and someone explained it to her as like a gap. You know how you have gap car insurance? If you wreck your car, it's worth less. You have insurance that pays the difference between the two. Now they're calling them like a gap between appraisal and sales price. So make sure or see if they have the money where they can pay what they agreed to pay for the price, whether it appraises or not. Can the buyer make the offer without including seller paid closing costs? Should the buyer consider paying any of the seller's costs? So we talked about this a little bit last time as well. In our market, it is not customary at all for the buyer to ever offer to pay the seller's closing costs. And I truly feel like, and the reason I was asking Melissa to see what she had done, used, which of these items that we'll talk about today, she had tried to use, and it sounds like they were super aggressive. She's just in a very, very tight part of our market. If you could get that, if you could almost get her up, I know she probably doesn't want to or can't afford it, but if she could get up over 3, she would see a whole nother world of properties available. But no one has ever, in my 22 years of selling houses, has ever come to my seller and said, if you take my offer, I will pay your closing costs. Closing costs to sellers are deed prep, transfer tax, their proration of their property tax, the title search. No, the buyer pays the title. Who pays the title search? Why am I blanking on that? Buyer pays the title search, right? Yes. Yeah. Then the biggest one is the commission. So when you present an offer and you say, hey, Mr. Seller, this is how this would look like. Hey, Mr. Seller, I know you're getting offers for $20,000 above asking price, but we're going to offer you $10,000 above asking price. So you have more of a likelihood of it appraising and there not being an issue. And in addition to that, we're going to pay all of your closing fees. So whatever fees you have to close, we're going to pay those up to $10,000. You've eliminated 2 things. One, you've eliminated your buyer paying a tax on a higher sales price, their property taxes. And 2, you have eliminated the problem of appraisal. So a lot of what is happening right now is, if you put yourself in the listing agent's shoes, you don't want 2 weeks to go by and the appraisal become an issue, because now that seller has lost every ounce of negotiating power they have, because what was a 30 offer or a 10 offer or even a 5 offer situation is now not. It's just one-on-one, and the playing field is much more level. It's much more non-rushed. It's much more logical. So the seller, I believe, in my heart of hearts, would, if they have an agent that explains it to them correctly, that seller would go, oh, this is good stuff here, because now my risk has been mitigated. And now I'm still getting the same amount of money because I'm not paying all these fees that are going to be mine anyway to pay. If a buyer has a property to sell, is it under contract? Is it on the market? If you can write an offer that does not include a contingency, you will be more successful, hands down, period. If your offer has to have a contingency to sell someone else's property or to sell that buyer's property, you might as well, unless it's just you only the lonely making an offer on a house, you might as well tell them that they're out of luck. The reason for that is because cash is king right now, and that takes all the risk for the seller. It's gone. And if you have to have financing and you're not able to carry both mortgages, they're going to pick a buyer that has a stronger stance where there's less opportunities for something to happen. What if they don't sell, or what if their deal keeps falling apart? Side note, I will say that at our board of directors meeting yesterday, the board of directors spent about an hour discussing a replacement property addendum. And that addendum is going to be used in situations where you have a seller that doesn't want to sell until they find something else. But the house that the seller would sell, I feel like I'm saying see Sally's seashells on the seashore. If you have a house that the seller would sell, that would sell fast, you're bringing that house to the market as inventory, and that's what we need. So the seller's property replacement addenda says this seller will sell this house if they find another house that they like. Just imagine if we could get 1,000 sellers to put their house on the market with the contingency of saying, I'll sell this one if I can buy one like this. That's what LBAR's trying to do today. And again, all this is coming from out west because they've been experiencing this for much longer than we have. So let's see. If a buyer does have a house to put on the market, show the seller the days on market average for the area the buyer's house is in. I call them show me's. It's more than just saying it's in a great neighborhood, it'll sell fast, blah, 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 blah. Print out the reports just like you would print them out for the seller. Send them to the listing agent and say, this is a very great property that'll sell in, look, the average is 2 days. 2 days it went pending. You don't have to worry about us. We're solid. We'll get this sold. So anything you can do, just like you would go to a listing appointment, anything you can do to prepare the agent prior to you submitting the offer or when you submit the offer, do it in order to make sure your offer stands out.
Hey, Christy,
yes.
I wanted to ask you a question about the seller replacement property addenda. Is there a timeline on that? And the reason why I ask is because I did see another agent on a listing that had written into the listing that any offers need to be accompanied with an addendum that stated that the sellers had 60 days from contract date in order to secure a property. Do you recommend doing that for now? If you thought
reached out,
it's going to be hot and they want to buy something too.
So LBAR shoved the property addenda back to the forms committee. The board of directors did because it was very cumbersome. But once I had it explained to me, I understood the process of the form, but explaining a cumbersome form to 3,500 people is almost impossible. So LBAR's board of directors sent it back to the task force to make it a more simple version. So we should see this hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days. On a side note, because they did that and it's not something that we can lean on, I reached out to Nathan Billings. He is a litigation attorney, and he uses our real estate contracts all the time, or he litigates our real estate contracts in the court system, and he's one of the very few that do in our area. I've asked him to write up some verbiage for me that we can use until an addendum is provided by LBAR. So I should have that, I hope, in the next few days, and I'll make sure everybody gets it. And essentially what it says, Susie, is that the seller has, and it'll have a blank, so many days to secure a replacement property. They have to notify the buyer in writing once they have to remove this contingency. And then if the seller cannot locate a replacement property within that many days, the buyer has the right to walk. So as soon as I get it, I'll get it to you. However, I do want to make sure it's a reverse kick-out contingency. Essentially, you know how we have buyer kick-out contingency, it's a reverse kick-out contingency. So we just need to make sure we're using it in situations that our buyers aren't harmed, because there's also the opportunity of another house coming along that they love. And if you put them in there, in that, you tie them to that contract for more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 60 days, 90 days is too long. You can't hold a buyer. I mean, it's just too long. So we just have to make sure we do that well. Counsel the buyer about not overpaying for a property. Make sure the buyer will not be stretched too far financially. Again, counseling them, don't make the decision for them. I've run across realtors who are like, you can't afford that. You don't need to be buying this. This is too much for you. That's not your responsibility. First of all, it can be offensive. Second of all, you know, they have to be over 18 to purchase a home. So they're making an adult decision. Educate buyers about how listing brokers may handle multiple offers. I think a lot of the frustration that I see is that the buyers truly don't understand the process of a multiple offer, and realtors don't understand how to handle multiple offers is the other side of it. If you give a deadline, stick with your deadline. Unless there's extenuating circumstances, stick with your deadline. I've gotten 2 complaints this week, one in Richmond, and I don't know who I was talking to an agent in Lexington office yesterday, and they were both complaining about the realtors not either 1, sticking with their deadline, or 2, giving a very clear deadline. MLS proper procedures are on LBAR in our form. I think it's in our forms page. You will be able to see how it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's exactly how a multiple offer process should go. If you want to hand that to them or give that to them for some education, contact the listing broker to ask questions. This is twofold. I think if you just blindly submit an offer through dotloop and you don't have a conversation with the agent, or you don't talk to them about how fantastic your buyer is, even as a listing agent, to get those calls repeatedly over and over and over again is exhausting. However, your phone call or your conversation with them may register or stick in their mind, and they remember how kind you were, how nice you were, how helpful you were. Being aggressive or hateful or pushy is not going to help your buyer get this property under contract. Being kind and forthright and inquisitive upfront will, because realtors like working with realtors who are nice. And the cooperation between agents in our community has always been there until recently, where it's gotten a little bit hostile. I believe that as long as you keep that cooperation friendly, that your offer may stand out. You ask them what offers have been received. Ask for the number of expected, because this is different. The number of expected offers and the number they actually have in hand now. Another questions that aren't on here is, do they plan on sending out a highest and best request? Or because they know there's already multiple offers, should you go ahead and submit your highest and best? Confirm when the seller will review the offers with date and time. Know when that timeline is. I had one a couple weeks ago. The timeline was 6 o'clock. It was 7:01 and I hadn't heard a word. So I texted him and I said, hey, it's 7 o'clock. Have you heard anything? There were only 2 offers. And he was like, you know what? I haven't even called my seller yet. I didn't even realize it was 7 o'clock. I wanted to knock that guy in the teeth because my buyer had called me 5 times. We knew what time it was. And so anyway, the ask if any of the offers have been written by the listing broker. That's important for a couple reasons. One, you know what you're up against. And if there's any difference in commission between his or her offer and the commissions the seller would pay on co-op, that's variable rate commission, and it should be disclosed on the MLS. If it's not disclosed, then that's a clear cooperation fine. But if you have a seller, or if you have an agent that goes into the whole scenario that knows what all the offers coming in are, and then they also write an offer on the listing, it's unfair, but it's not unethical. Nobody is on the same level of playing field as the person that knows all the offers and then wrote an offer on the property. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. It's very frustrating, but it's the beast. It just is what it is. What sales price did the buyer need to match to be or beat to be competitive? Back to the scenario where the guy was supposed to submit the offers at 6 o'clock. I called him on the phone and I said, what do I need to beat in order for my buyer to get this listing? And he said, I can only tell you that the other offer that I have is under asking price. This man had no, he was under asking price, and the seller had gotten another offer that had fallen through, and it was between 550 and 590. He told me that. So he gave me clear, direct, without saying a number, he gave me clear, direct instructions on where I needed to point the arrow to get somewhere close to the target. Should he have? No. But if I didn't ask, I would never have known. And some people just like to hear their own voice. So they'll just say whatever they got to say in order to hear their own voice. So asking the questions might be uncomfortable. Most are going to say, I'm not telling you that's not happening. But then you'll run into the one that gives you clear direction on where you need to offer.
Christy, is it true that a listing agent can share that information as long as the seller says it's okay?
Yes, it is true. The listing agent can disclose that information as long as the seller says it's okay. They have to disclose it to everybody. They can't just disclose it to the ones that they like. They have to tell every single person the same information.
So as long as the buyer's agent is asking those questions, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they can disclose it even if they're not, even if it's not requested. They can still disclose it. Sometimes, if I had a $30,000 over asking offer, and Missy came to me and she said, hey, my buyer is super strong. It's cash. There's no appraisal. Where do we need to go with this? It might behoove me, and it might benefit my seller if I say, sis, you got to come at 30,000 over asking, because I want a cash offer and I want it for the highest price for my seller. So that would be a situation in which it would be, I feel like it would benefit the seller to tell what it is, because chances of someone coming $40,000 over is a little unrealistic, maybe. But what other terms are the seller looking for? There was a person who I ran into, was an agent. They didn't get an offer because they weren't able, or the buyers would not give a 60-day post occupancy after closing, and they lost the transaction. Or they lost the buyer lost the house because they wouldn't allow the seller to stay for 60 days. Know exactly what the seller needs before you write the offer, so that way you can cater your offer to exactly what hits their pain points for the seller. If they've got small kids and they really don't want to move during the school year, okay, well, we'll move June 15th. It's my birthday, but we'll move June 15th. You know, I'm fine with that. Or the seller need, the replacement property addendum or something like that. Ask the broker about the seller's expectation regarding the buyer's contingencies. There was a transaction someone had a couple weeks ago where there was a lot of issues with the house that was found out after the first deal fell apart. So the seller's directive was, I'm only selling my house to someone who will check box 1. If you want an inspection, you get it prior to making the offer. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. Discuss with listing broker the need for the inspection contingency to protect the seller and the buyer, 1, 2, or 3. A lot of what I see happening is people are checking box 2, and then they find something wrong, like the heating and air is not cooling efficiently. So they're going to the seller. Now that all the playing field is level, the negotiating playing field is level, because you've gotten rid of all those other 30 offers. They're going back to the seller and they're saying, I know you don't want to put this back on the market. I'm not going to buy it, but you fix the heating and air unit and I'll buy it. Well, in box 2, you're not supposed to ask for anything. So people just aren't following their end of the bargain. So we got to be real particular or specific when we check that box, and we need to educate the buyers that means you don't get to ask for the repairs. Box 1 means you don't even have an inspection. Box 2 means you have one, just to understand what you're getting yourself into. And box 3 means, for those who don't know, box 3 means that you're having an inspection and you have the right to negotiate repairs with the seller. That's
sorry, Christy, but box 2, they can still back out. Like if it comes up, it's, $20,000 to replace the roof, the buyer can back out. They can't ask the seller to replace it, but they can back out. Is that right?
Exactly. That's
Okay.
Exactly right. And a lot of times, if it's initiated by the seller, it's okay. A lot of times, if you go to them and say, we're going to send you a release, your roof is leaking and we're not going to spend $20,000 and prime price for your house. So we're going to go on and back out. And if they say, well, what do you want us to fix? So you'll buy it. That's okay. But you going to them and breaching their contract and saying, box 2, we're going to ask you to fix this anyway, is not okay. And the seller really doesn't even have to acknowledge it. Ask about the ability to pre-inspect a property. I'm going to guess that we're going to see this start popping up more so than not. Because if a long time ago, it was really popular for homeowners when it was a buyer's market. It was really popular for homeowners to go ahead and get a home inspection before they listed their property. 1, so they could fix everything. And 2, so they could show the buyer, hey, I got a great house. You don't need to look at all those other houses, because there were 20,000 houses on the market. You don't need to look at all those other houses. You just need to look at mine, because I've already had a pre-inspection and we all know what's going on already. It's going to flip, and it's going to be, we'll take offers up until, 6 o'clock on a Sunday. But the requirement of my seller is that you either check box 1 take it as is, that's it, and have your inspections before you bring us your offer on Sunday. So if you want to have an inspection, we're leaving Saturday open all day long for your inspector to come. Like, I feel like those things are coming simply because whatever starts in the west always works its way here. And number two, that will be a way to weed out 35 offers. Like, how can you even comprehend or pick a real, true, solid offer out of 35? That's too much information for many people, especially emotionally driven decisions. That's just so much information.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So in order to let people do inspections before, are you saying like maybe open up the inspection period while it's on coming soon?
Mhm.
Okay. So
You
before it's
can't-
actually happening.
You can't open it up on coming soon because you're not allowed to show it during coming soon. But let's say it hits the market day one. You say in the marketing remarks, which people don't read, remind me to bring that up in a minute. You say in the marketing remarks, you say in the agent only comments, you say in the showing time approvals, if you like this property and you plan on putting an offer on this property, you need to have your inspection done prior to writing the offer, because my seller is only accepting box one.
So more than likely, you're going to end up having to leave it on the market for a little bit longer.
Yes, you'll leave it on, like you'll leave it on. If you put it in on a Monday and you close it out on a Sunday, then you've left it on like 7 days.
Okay.
But I think the intent is to have the least amount of hurdles to jump through as you've gotten it under contract.
That's also very appealing for my buyer. She would like to have the appraisal done before we make an offer, but like it'll go on the market and pending by 6 o'clock or the next day. And there's not even any time in there for any kind of inspection.
Mhm.
Like they barely give us 15 minutes to even, if you get a
See
half
it.
an hour, it's like the holy grail. I mean, most of
Yeah.
them limit even just to 15 minutes. So
And the reason, and I do understand that, but I also believe that we are better realtors than that, because the frenzy, like, you know, you throw fish food in the pond and you have all the fish coming to eat it. The frenzy was fun for a minute, but now it's become frustrating. When it frustrates your buyers and you have buyers leaving the market because they can't wrap their head around, you know, writing $40,000 or $30,000 over asking on something you've looked at for 15 minutes, they're going to get frustrated and they're going to leave the market. So if you leave it on the market just a few days longer and you give the super serious ones the opportunity to do whatever inspection they want, they could just want their plumber to walk through and make sure all the faucets don't leak, but they're checking box one. Do you see what I'm saying? And it kind of, in my opinion, it kind of says, look, we want this to be easy. We're not here to just take the highest and best. We're here to take the best offer. And here's how we're proceeding. And I think they're coming. This pre-inspection stuff started at the beginning of 2021. So it's been happening like in Seattle and Maine and all those, you know, where there's not a lot of property available, but there's a lot of buyers. It's been happening there for almost, what month are we in? 4 or 5 months. So it might take a minute for it to get here, but it is coming. It should eventually be here.
I have a
Check the
question.
listing. Go ahead.
So as far as that goes, the option of box one, does that disqualify VA and FHA loans?
No, because there is nothing with the VA loan that requires them to have an inspection. The appraiser does their own VA inspections and they will still have an appraisal.
Which may
You have-
require repairs.
Yes. But it does not disqualify. FHA does not require a home inspection. VA does not require a home inspection. VA requires a termite, but they do not require a home inspection. The lender for those three that I just mentioned do extra home inspection type, not the lender, the appraiser does extra home inspection type things. They check the appliances, they make sure there's no trip hazards in the concrete, chip paint, broken windows. They make sure there's hot water. No water in the crawl space if there is one. They do those extra things. But yes, you're right, Susie. It could require, and there was something in here and I took it out because I didn't believe it. It may actually be in here, but I didn't believe it. But now that you've said that and I'm kind of running it through my brain, there's a rural housing, Kentucky housing, and VA loan comment in here that says if you're going those 3 types of financing, to try to go conventional because of the less amount of red tape. Before anyone says anything, no, that's not against fair housing. There's no protection for loans in fair housing. So you just have to be sure to just verbalize it in a way saying that you're not accepting those loans, not those people or those criteria or whatever. Check the listing documents. This is huge. These complaints. I've heard so many frustrations this week. People don't read. People aren't reading. People are not, listening to my instructions. And I told someone yesterday, I said, this type of thing you can put in the marketing remarks. Like it was, the seller will review all offers on Friday at 6 o'clock. She said she sent it in showing time when they did the showing time request. She sent it, she put it in the agent only remarks. She sent 36 individual text messages. And someone got mad because they submitted an offer on Saturday and they didn't see those 3 notifications. And I said, well, here's what I suggest you do. Put as the first line in the marketing remarks, put that, I know my face is supposed to look here, but you all are here. And I'm not like looking out in La La Land. I'm looking at you. You just can't see that I'm looking at you. So I just realized that was going on. But I said, put it in the marketing remarks. Guess who's going to read it? The buyer. And they're going to go, we have to have an offer in by Friday at 6 o'clock, because realtors don't read. The buyer reads everything they can about every single house they look at. They know their mama's, grandma's, aunts and uncles' birthdays. So, so put it in there. If you have very strict seller instructions, then put them in there. This listing broker, her advice was to attach a document to the listing, like with the seller disclosure, because everybody looks at that, that gives advice to buyers agents so they can write the cleanest offer. So that would be nice if people started doing that here. If there's an advertised offer review date on the MLS, then ask if they would take an exceptional offer before then. I know that you're reviewing everything. Paul, did you just do something?
No, Crystal just put in a comment. She said,
Well, she's-
had a buyer Facebook stalk the seller and see they were Trump supporters and wanted me to tell them they were too.
Okay. Susie, would you have a hard time dealing with that? You're the most least controversial person in the planet.
Definitely tell them to put that in writing and I could forward it along. Yes.
Send me an email. That was funny. The I forgot where I was going. An exceptional offer. So go to that listing agent and say, hey, I know your deadline's 6 o'clock, but if I gave your sellers $30,000 over asking price and I did box 1 and we can close in 3 weeks, or it's cash and close in 10 days, would you just go on and accept our offer? And if they say no, we have to wait till the deadline and say, this will be uncomfortable. I'm warning you, it will be uncomfortable, but you have to be nice, say it with a smile so they hear it in your voice, and say, could you verify that for me with your seller? Because the agent cannot answer for the sellers. And if you present an offer with a deadline prior to their deadline, they have to, by law, present it. And if they reject it, then you can request the seller send them the seller write on it rejected, and they have to provide it to you. So if you have an exceptional offer, $7,000 in seller paid closing costs, $10,000 escrow directly to the seller. If we don't buy it, you keep it. $30,000 over asking. Present my offer by 2 o'clock, please. Thank you. And then if they don't, then say, I need you to send that back to me with rejected on it, because I need to know that your seller saw it. They just passed that law back end of last year, I think, the rejected requirement. Play nice, be kind, but you can also be a very good representative of your client. Let's
Okay,
see.
so my one caveat about that, so then let's say the seller, they do it, and the seller says, yeah, we'll take that one. So then you have to like, what, tell all the other 30 agents, never mind, I gave you a deadline, but we took another one and piss all them off?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, if your seller's willing to take the offer and you are forced to present it because you have to present all offers. And if the deadline on that offer is shorter than the deadline of 6 o'clock, you still have to present it. And if your seller says, yes, I will take this, it can't get any better than this, then yeah, I would definitely go back to them. And you're going to have some mad agents, but on the flip side, you did your job for your buyer. And if you're the listing agent, you were instructed by your seller, and they'll be okay. Realtors' memories aren't that long anyway. They'll be fine. Except if never mind. I'm gonna put that right there, that pin in that one, and leave it alone. I'm not gonna say it. Escalation addendum. How do you personally treat the escalation addendum? A lot of these are being thrown out. A lot of these are being counteracted by confidentiality agreements. I've had a ton of questions about these escalation addendums in the last couple months. There were 3 offers on a property. 2 of the 3 had an escalation clause in it. Those same 2 had confidentiality agreements. The only thing that can trigger an escalation clause is another offer that's of higher price. You have to present that offer, the first page of that offer, to prove how the escalation was enforced and what caused it to go to this price. If your offers all have confidentiality agreements on it, you cannot produce that form to escalate that sales price. Very smart. However, in this situation that I'm talking about, it cost the buyer more money. They wound up coming up, and the escalation would have only taken them up like a couple $1,000s, and they wound up coming up 5 or 6. So as strategic as that was, it backfired on that particular buyer. So I would ask this question: do you have any other offers that have confidentiality agreements presented to you right now? Then you'll know how to proceed. Because even if you have 6 offers and 4 of them have confidentiality agreements, then at least you have 2 that could escalate your, if they tell your number, you have 2 that could escalate your price. It's all about learning as much information about the other offers that are on the table, about the seller's needs, desires, wants, and about how to get information out of people without making them feel like they're giving you, information they shouldn't. Let's see. Most buyers in multiple offer situations would prefer using this addendum as opposed to submitting their highest and best, so they have a chance of buying the home at the lower price. Determine what amount your buyer is willing to offer as the escalation amount. And here it is right here: make the escalation increment through enough to compel the seller to accept your offer of FHA, Kentucky Housing, RHS, or VA over someone else who would be getting a conventional loan with 20% down. Price is not always the determining factor of why a seller should choose an offer. Yes, it is one of them. But if you have 3 offers on the table, they're all similar in price within $5,000 or $6,000. One of them is cash. Counter the cash at the highest price. You chose that offer because it was cash, not because it was the highest price. Something else that I want to throw out there, and it's going to shake some of you agents who've been agents for a while. It's going to shake you to your core. It did me, and I called an attorney, Nathan Billings again, and I asked him 1,000 questions. He was probably ready to get me off the phone. The way a lot of agents do multiple offers is incorrect. According to contract law, and I will have Nathan Billings come and teach a class at our office very soon. If you have 5 offers on the table, our previous education has been said to pick one, reject the 4. Pick the one you really want to work with, reject the 4. Nathan Billings is going to come and teach a class because according to him, and he's been an attorney for like 1,000,000 years, according to him, contract law says that if you pick an offer and you counter it, you haven't accepted it, you counter it, you don't have to reject the other 4 until you've accepted that offer. So you counter the one you like, and if they don't do or come to the terms that you want, you have the option still of those other 4 offers to go to and try to negotiate the best deal for the seller. The 1,000 questions that I asked him was, well, why is KREC teaching us? Reject the 4, accept the 1. And he said, because you're realtors and not attorneys. And contract law, it's easier to say, accept 1, reject the 4. He said, but contract law in the state of Kentucky is that you can do whatever you want with any of the offers prior to accepting one.
Can you counter all 5 offers at the same time?
No, you can't do that. Because if they all accept it, you've sold it 5 times.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Good question.
So
So
make a very short response time on your counter.
yes, he said he would make it like an hour, 30 minutes, something really, really small. I mean, you could even make it, you've got 15 minutes to decide. Are you going to accept this or not? I'm going to the next one. But when I talked to him, and he did back up what I heard from another, just in passing from another attorney who I didn't necessarily believe, unfortunately. He said he would teach a class for us. So I'm working on getting him to come in April and talking to us. And his class is called WINS. So just look for that title, WINS. Let's see. It just says that all things being equal, the seller may be willing to accept what they perceive to be a higher risk offer, Kentucky Housing, FHA, Rural Housing, VA, on a 5% down deal if they are making $5,000 to $10,000 more. So this is still talking about the escalation clause. You can do this in your escalation if you suspect that you're competing with a cash offer and your offer requires getting a loan. Consider adding this language that increases the escalation increment only when competing with cash offers. So one of the questions you would ask, are any of them cash? Can you disclose that to me? Escalation addendum modification. In the event the competing offer, meaning the buyer under the competing offer presently possesses sufficient funds to close and is not relying on other source of funds, which would be home equity line of credit, is not cash. Stocks they need to sell is not cash. Cashing in a 401k is not cash. Taking money out of a life insurance plan is not cash. Those are not cash. Cash is cash in the bank. that a bank can say, you have this money and you have this money, your cash. In the event, let's see. In the event the competing offer, under the competing offer presently possesses sufficient funds to close, is not relying on another source of funds, the buyer hereby agrees that the incremental amount of escalation under the escalation addendum shall be this amount. So you're only competing with the most prevalent offers in the stack of offers. So if there's cash and then there's 6 financing ones, now you're just competing with the cash one in the mind of the in the mind of your buyer and in the mind of the seller. Let's see. If these type of financing, VA, FHA, USDA, and Kentucky Housing, do they have other sources of funds? Gift, I actually had someone sell a Land Rover once. Ask for as little in closing costs as possible. A lot of people that are coming to the table with FHA or Kentucky Housing do need closing costs. There's down payment assistance for that. Raise the price as high as reasonably possible. Listen to this, with the hope that an inexperienced listing broker might advise accepting it. Then the buyer can hope for a good appraisal and the seller may compromise on price if it comes back too low. That is an actual tactic. Because there are some sellers out, some listing agents out there, and I could name 10 right now easily, that are solely looking for the highest offer, and they're chucking the rest because they're checking that number on that first page and they're not looking at anything else. So that's good at getting their attention. If you know it's not going to appraise, then maybe your strategic negotiating is knowing that once the appraisal happens, you're 2 weeks into the deal, now the playing field is level and you'll be able to renegotiate the price. Very risky, very, very risky. But if they have other sources of funds, gift money from grandma and grandpa, you know, estate trust money, whatever it might be, then if it doesn't appraise, then maybe that's when they can pay the difference as opposed to renegotiating price. Financing approval letter, evidence of funds, have a very strong pre-approval letter. There are ways right now that you can actually get submitted to underwriting and go into underwriting before getting the offer in place. So when you come out to negotiate your contract, you can actually say to the seller's agent, hey, we're in underwriting. We're not a pre-qual, we're not pre-approval, we're in underwriting, and we can close this sucker in 2 weeks. We've already done the legwork. And that makes your buyer a stronger buyer. Let's see. Be a good professional communication relationship with the listing broker. This says days. I'm going to jokingly say hours prior to submitting the offer. Be the friendly one. Be the one that wants to help. Be the one that asks the good questions. Be the, you know, like befriend them. Do what you do to court them like you would court a buyer that you want to be their representative, or like you would court a listing that you want to be their representative. Buddy up to them, make them feel like a deal with you is going to be spectacular and easy. Because a lot of times realtors will push an offer if they feel like that agent's going to be easier to work with than this other one. Writing offer strategies, contingencies, satisfy and waive every contingency that you can prior to submitting the offer. This involves you and the buyer working quickly for the buyer to conduct their due diligence in a very short amount of time. If buyer is obtaining a loan, but the offer is not contingent upon financing, be sure to include language that the contract discloses the contingent source of funds. If you have a buyer that is very solid, meaning they work for NASA, they got an 800 credit score, they got 500 million in the bank, maybe you mark out all the financing stuff and you say, we're buying it, loan, cash, whatever, we're buying it. And then you make it contingent on nothing, The only thing that the contingency that would have to stay in there would be on the seller's end, which would be the title, the free and clear title. Buyers obtaining, this could be a sample of your strategy for the contingencies. Buyers obtaining financing to purchase this property, but not including a financing contingency within this offer. Seller agrees to cooperate with the buyer and buyer's lender to permit the buyer the opportunity to obtain any loans, including without limitation, permitting inspections by appraisers required by buyer's lender. So you're still getting a loan, your buyer's super solid, but it's not contingent upon the financing because they have fallback. Inspections, if the seller has already conducted their own prior to listing the home, obtain a copy of that. Make a point to let them know it's not best to rely upon the seller's report, but to have their own inspection. The majority of the buyers will elect not to pay for their own inspection if one is provided to them from the seller that's recent. Most inspectors find the same things. I've seen it, you know, you've seen it. Most of them find the same things. So that would be something that's interesting. Escalation homework. When determining your buyer's top escalation price, perform your own research in the general vicinity. I think a lot of what is happening right now, especially with putting houses on the market, is this house may be $230,000, but there's 3 pending. Comp wise, it might be $230,000, but there's 3 pending right around it. Call those and ask them, how much over asking did you get? How much over asking did you get? How much over asking did you get? Because if they're all comparable sales, you can go to the listing agent and you can say, I've done my research. I want to make sure this is a solid contract in which we're not going to have any problems with comps. House number 1 went 5,000 over. House number 2 went 7,000 over. House number 3 went 6,000 over. So we came in at $7,000 over because there's a comp that'll support it. It's closing on this day. So we're going to close on this day to make sure that the appraiser can use that comp. Education or knowledge is invaluable, because if you go to, if a listing agent came to you and said that, you would be like, girl's got her stuff together. Like, she really went and did the homework on how to figure out how to price this house. Matter of fact, and I can't believe nobody in this office has a buyer under 300,000, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage off Boston Road. Like, nobody. I've got one coming up and I've gotten 0 calls on it from you all. Go find me a buyer. I have that one coming, and there was another agent that I knew that had it listed across the street, one very similar. And I texted and I said, did you get over asking? They were very forthcoming. They were very kind with their information. And they were like, yep, I got this many offers. I got this much over asking. Use it as you need it. And I was like, hot dog. I raised our price $29,000 because I know that comp is closing. So anyway, conversion of earnest money to a non-refundable deposit. I think this is the most ingenious thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. And although, unfortunately, Missy, it's not worked for you a couple times, keep the faith. Because I truly believe in a situation to where the seller knows that no matter what happens, they're going to keep your earnest money. It makes them feel good about the deal. It makes them feel solid that you're not going to walk away, or it's going to be very painful. Like how Missy, I'm going to put you on the spot again. If your girl gave $10,000 non-refundable earnest money to the seller, the chances of her walking away from $5,000 or $10,000 is going to be what?
0. She was not gonna walk away. No way. No way.
So it's
I
like,
couldn't believe they didn't take it. Honestly, I would have ran with it.
yeah. So even if your financing falls apart, they keep your $10,000. I mean, to me, it's so, if you're in a situation where you are up against 30 other offers, which you were, Missy, we talked, to me, that would, as a listing agent, I would be like, they got guts. They're serious. They're not going anywhere. Let's sell to these people. counter back at whatever price we want and sell it to that lady. Cause I'm about to give you $10,000.
Yeah, we had waived inspections and everything,
Ah,
except for termite. That was the only inspection that we were gonna have. Yeah. So,
wow. So, anyway, so buyers offer to release the earnest money directly to the seller after mutual acceptance of the offer. If they have no contingencies included in the offer, the thought process is the buyer has no contingencies and therefore would forfeit their earnest money if they fail to close. So why not sweeten the offer by giving the seller the money within 3 days after mutual acceptance? We often use $1,000 earnest money that can be a nice bonus to the seller up front. If you do this, be sure to add in the language that specifies if this transaction fails for any other reason, if this transaction fails to close for any reason other than default by the seller. Nathan also taught me something else. Default is not a word that the court can acknowledge. It's seller breach. I was educated, let me tell you. I'm excited about his class. If the transaction fails to close for any reason other than seller breach, this refundable deposit shall remain with the property as property of the seller. Remain the property of the seller. So change all that to seller breach. To me, it's smart. It's so smart, especially if you're in that price range and you have the cash. It's just smart. A good portion of our lack of inventory is homeowners not willing to list their home because they don't know if they will be successful in finding their next one. It's become common for buyers to offer the seller extended possession for the home up to 60 days after closing. If you don't like the replacement property addendum language, then say, Mr. and Miss Seller, we're not going to rush you out. We've still got 3 months on our lease over here at Harbor Manor, or wherever it might be. We'll sit tight here. You stay in the house until you find something. You've got 90 days to be out. That's 45 days to find a home, 45 days to close. So be sure to find out the specific seller's needs before offering post-closing possession. If they don't need it or don't care, don't offer it. Somebody gonna say something? No, nobody. That's all I got. Does anybody have any questions? I feel like we've had a great conversation today. This is the second time I've actually taught this in March. So it's obvious that there are some serious needs for how to win a multiple offer situation. I'm happy to counsel with you as long as I'm awake. So if you guys need anything, reach out, let me know. If you have any questions, we can go over them now. I'll stay on as long as you guys have questions.
Are there any lenders out there that are doing bridge loans a little bit easier, a little bit better? I feel like that would also help solve this issue.
Fifth Third stopped doing them during the pandemic, but they are doing them. I heard recently that they are either 6 or 9 months behind. I had someone bought a Hidden Creek lot in Hidden Creek, and it literally took us 9 months to close it. And it was a little $80,000 lot. And the only thing I can think of is that it was a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. But the Bank of the Bluegrass does them. UK Credit Union does, that I know of. They do those, but you have to be a member there. I'm trying to think of what other banks here in town that I've heard do a lot of bridge loans. Does anybody else have any that they know they're aware of? No, oh, somebody commented, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it was Michelle. She said
can't
the
see.
Fairgrove
Okay.
Union Savings Bank was offering bridge loans. I'm not sure about
Okay. Okay. Union Savings Bank, so maybe them. It's always good. And I think right now, truly, we all want to throw a buyer in the car and show them a bunch of houses. But I would say in the market that we're in, having those tough conversations up front, you can take them to a listing, you can show them a property, but you need to have this conversation of, let me talk to you about what you're going to experience. Let's set expectations up front. So the frustration only comes after they understand what's going to happen. Does that make sense? It'll take them longer to get irritated because you said up front, we're going to submit 10 offers and you might get one. We're going to see 5 houses and you're probably going to want to make an offer on all 5. We'll be lucky to get one. So just hang with me and understand. And then maybe you can talk to them about doing financing. Let's go ahead and get you in the underwriter. And if your lender requires an address before they will move you to underwriting phase, then just tell them you're looking at this particular property. And a lot of times they will go ahead and start processing it to get it to go into underwriting for that first level of conditional approval. So that one of the conditions would be appraisal and all that other stuff. But I'm going to send this to Paul. I think you already have it, Paul. Do you want me to send it again?
Yeah, send it to me one more time just to make sure.
Okay. All the people that joined today, even if they did join the last time we had the call, go ahead and send them these so they can have them as a in their toolbox. But if you feel like you're barking up a tree and you're just not getting any response, or and you're frustrated and you want to help think, process, and negotiating, I'm happy to talk to you. I've talked to several agents in the last couple of weeks where we've talked negotiating strategies, and even listing agents who've had tons and tons of offers, and they're like, how do I even muddle through this? Get you a good spreadsheet. I might have Natalie Mason. I don't know if Kim's on here, but I might have Natalie Mason actually come on and do a class about how she uses a spreadsheet in a multiple offer situation, because she sent me her spreadsheet of one a few weeks ago. And I was like, my brain does not work that way. I could not create that. So maybe she'll be willing to do that for us. But you guys have a wonderful Thursday. Again, if you need anything or have any questions, feel free to always reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.